The hero of the Cosmos story has arrived. I cannot emphasize sufficiently how much these last few years Seth MacFarlane's commitment to seeing a new cosmos that everyone could get, you don't have to have cable, you can see it on Fox Sunday night. The idea of Cosmos in prime time, that's the fact that it's happening is entirely due to my friend Seth MacFarlane, who has absolutely shown his unflinching, unstinting determination to bring good science, information, entertainment, science-based entertainment to the broadest possible audience. Not only has Seth, did he bring us to Fox? Did he make sure that we were treated so that we could do Cosmos the way we want to do it, so that it's commensurately cool as the original was when it was first broadcast, and in my view, as it still is. But then Seth sits in on every script meeting and goes over every script line by line and comes up with 10 golden ideas that my co-writer, Steve Soder, and I just sit back and think, why didn't we think of that? So if you like Cosmos when you see it, in large measure, it will be because of this wonderful man, Seth MacFarlane, who I'm so excited to introduce to you.
You give me way too much credit, but thank you. I was supposed to be here sooner, but every citizen of Los Angeles is out on the roads at the same time today. So it's actually a great treat and a great honor and a great pleasure to be here. This is obviously a very big night for all of us here on Earth. I actually had the privilege of visiting the Jet Propulsion Lab last year for a tour and a crash course in the workings of the Curiosity probe. That crash course, probably not the best term to use under the circumstances now that everything will be fine. Everything will be fine. Some parts of it I grasped, and other parts were pretty far beyond what my design school degree prepared me for. But as someone who is a space enthusiast rather than a scientist himself, the thought that stirred me the most was the chance to see high-definition video feed from the surface of another world. Even just to see a little bit of red dust blowing on the surface of Mars will be nothing short of staggering and breathtaking, and I've been thinking about it for months. Obviously a sight that human beings have never beheld. But before we all gaze upon the grand horizons of Mitt Romney's homeworld, okay, so it's a predominantly left-wing crowd. I'm happy to be able to talk a bit about why I'm up here in the first place. I'm sure Ann has covered a lot of this, but it's worth repeating because it's fun stuff. Carl Sagan and Ann Druyan have been wonderfully, wonderfully influential in my life, and the lives, I'm sure, of everyone here. So when I heard that Ann and Steven Soder and Neil deGrasse Tyson were developing a brand new edition of Cosmos, for those of you who don't know, the legendary PBS series, which allowed even the most scientifically illiterate citizens of our planet to explore the universe in an accessible fashion, I wanted to be involved. The second I heard about it, I said, God, I would love to be involved with this. I couldn't bring any scientific knowledge or expertise to the table, although, Ann, I'm working on a potato-powered clock that's pretty cool. If we can work that into the show, I think it'll be real. Those are the kinds of ideas she's talking about. The one thing I could offer, the only thing I could offer, was the chance to present Cosmos to a wider audience. I had been working for Fox for years, producing Family Guy, a show whose primary goal is to provide an educational alternative to traditional programming. Kidding, it's mostly just shit jokes. So, I suggested to the network that they might possibly need an antidote to such televised fare as World's Wildest Police Chases, Who Wants to Marry a Millionaire, Celebrity Boxing, America's Wackiest Airline Disasters. That last one I might have made up. But my point was, while cable channels offer a rich variety of science-based programming, oftentimes it's a situation where you're preaching to the converted. So why not reach a mainstream network audience of millions of people? It's time, first of all. We're in grave danger of forgetting here in America how vitally important the continued exploration of space is to our future. I think, wasn't it Stephen Hawking who said there's way too many things that can happen to one tiny little planet for us not to spread our seeds out. And not as a country, but as a species. So maybe if there was something like this on network TV, first of all, Fred Willard wouldn't want to go to the movies. And okay, moving on. Fox may seem at first glance like an odd choice, given the fact that the corporation itself has not always been entirely scientifically responsible. It is worth noting, because we get asked this a lot, that Fox News and the Fox network behave like two different entities. They do. And the network is currently under the guidance of two men who are big outside-the-box thinkers. They were, Kevin Riley and Peter Rice were two. If anyone was going to get this and embrace it, it was going to be these guys. And sure enough, they embraced the idea of Cosmos on a network. They knew it wasn't going to be their biggest moneymaker, but who the hell knows. But the encouraging thing about being in that pitch was that wasn't really what was foremost in their minds. You know, it was energizing everyone in the room to hear about this, and certainly to hear Ann talk. Everyone who hears Ann talk, it just, you know, almost goes into a trance because she's the most compelling speaker on the planet. And I, you know, unless there turns out to be somebody on Mars who tops you, I think you're good. They were very excited over the prospect of something worthwhile. These were TV execs who were thinking not just about their ratings, but about their families and their kids, and I could see it all over their faces. It was a very different experience than the other network pitches I've been in. So, as a result, once again, after more than 30 years, Ann Druyan and Steven Soder have set about writing an extraordinary 13-part series for a new generation. Again, she gives me way too much credit. I join in where I can be useful, as does my friend Brandon Braga, who wrote and co-ran the TV series Flash Forward, also wrote countless episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation, Voyager, Enterprise, which he also co-created. Very, very talented guy. Yeah. But this show is Ann and Steve, bringing back that same magical touch to scientific storytelling that they and Carl brought to the original Cosmos in 1980. And it is an absolute thrill for me to be in that room with two people for whom I have such colossal respect and affection. The show will be, of course, presented through the wonderfully magnetic interpretation of the show's host, the one and only Neil deGrasse Tyson. who has in the past decade effectively carried on Carl Sagan's legacy of bringing science to the masses, telling its stories in such a way that your appetite for knowledge just grows and grows the longer he speaks. You'll have to wait a little while for the new Cosmos, as the projected release date is early 2014, but if you think of it in terms of geological time, it's not so bad. Thank you very much for having me tonight. I appreciate it.
Seth has agreed to take a few questions. I've got one. In the new Cosmos, are we going to talk as much about nuclear proliferation as we did back in the day? And are we going to talk about climate change?
Ann? There is talk of climate change.
Oh, yeah.
There is talk of climate change.
We are we are going to be very hard-hitting, and we hope in a number of different episodes, we hope to really awaken people from their stupor on this subject. And it's just amazing to me that in the original Cosmos, in episode 4, we talked about global warming. That was written in 1979. And I saw a couple of things this last week on climate change that were somewhat reassuring in a really depressing way. One was that a scientist named Muller, who had, a very serious scientist who had been one of the big climate skeptics. And he was the guy who the climate skeptics, the oil companies, would always, mention and say, well, Muller doesn't believe in it, and he's a Nobel laureate. Well, he's come around, and not only is now convinced that the climate is changing, but that it is caused by human activity. There's no doubt in his mind. So that was one thing which, now they have no one they can point to with any scientific credibility who denies the reality of climate change. And
They'll find a way to blame Clinton.
yes, they will. But no, we do take we are very forthright about climate change, but the scientific evidence for it. This is not a polemic. This is an exploration using the logic and the method of science. And there's not as much in this series about the nuclear arms race as there was in the original series, because when we made the original series, the United States and what was then the Soviet Union had 60,000 nuclear weapons on hair trigger. So, the fate of the planet, this is before nuclear winter, the fate of the planet was really hanging in the balance, and that was what we thought was the most important case we had to make at the time. Now, other priorities have really taken that place, and so we will not emphasize that very much in this series. Next question?
Yes, I had a question I wanted to ask. Sorry, I spaced out there for a second.
I'll handle the jokes if you don't mind.
No, I do have a real question. I'm really curious to ask the both of you about the seemingly adversarial nature between science and religion, especially in the United States with kind of the Christian religion. And I've seen, especially in Family Guy and different shows, and I think you try to do this in the Cosmos and all these things, but it's, in a way, it seems like a fight between older ideas of how the universe works and newer ideas of how the universe works. And I just wonder if you think that has to be a constant conflict, because it obviously is an obstacle for the advancement of science, but is there a way to kind of unite the world and unite these two very different paradigms?
Well, you guys have managed to do, you and Carl managed to do that on multiple occasions.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I mean, not effectively enough so that most of this planet is not still a hell for most people, but no, we very much, Carl and I were absolutely passionate about that subject. It's kind of the heart of the novel Contact and the film, although in the film it got sort of, slightly alighted over, and Cosmos. But please, Seth, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
It's difficult because there are ways to bridge those gaps, and as I said, Ann and Carl have managed to do it on several occasions with members of the clergy, with the commonality that all right, to you it's God's earth, to us it's nature, but we all have a vested interest in preserving it. We all need air to breathe. We all require the same environmental conditions to survive. So who cares? When it comes to environmental protection and conservation, that's a gap that can be bridged, and I'm actually surprised that it doesn't get bridged more often. And I think that because it's a no-brainer for any church. I mean, who doesn't want to continue to stay alive? We all do. But that's obviously when you get corporate special interests and that insidious relationship between the far right and certain wings of the church. I don't think it's you can't condemn all religion for that. It's only certain parts of certain organizations. But I mean, it's a hard thing to really, at the end of the day, we believe one thing and the religious folks believe another, and yeah, they are fundamentally at odds with each other in a lot of cases. I mean, when you get down, things like stem cell research, that comes up and rears its ugly head, and that's a problem. It is a problem. There are plenty of instances where religion is a legitimate threat to good progress, but I think there is absolutely a common ground to be found, and as I said, Ann and Steve have found it in the past on multiple occasions.
If I can just add, and I know what you're talking about, Seth. Carl and I were involved in something called the Joint Appeal in Religion and Science on behalf of the environment. And in enlisting religious leaders and teachers from around the world, we would say, you don't have to agree on how creation came to be in order to want to preserve it. So as Seth was saying, let's just agree to disagree and then go forward together to do what's necessary to preserve our natural environment. I think it's incumbent upon people who believe that science is a really great way to know the universe to be unfailingly humble and kind. And I think, the thing that makes me so proud about scientists is that while there's, very vigorous debate and ad hominem and yelling and shouting in scientific meetings, to my knowledge, scientists don't kill each other over their disagreements on scientific theories. That is a great sign that while science affords all kinds of spiritual uplift, it's a great way to be one with the universe, to be one with nature. I don't know a better way. It doesn't impose itself on anyone else. And I guess I believe that if we keep going on the way we do and sharing the findings and the discoveries and insights of science with the widest possible audience, that instead of frontally attacking superstition and ethnic hatred and chauvinism and religious chauvinism, I guess if we are the example of what we hope other citizens of this planet will be, we have some hope that we'll get to that world that we want for our kids.
Thank you both. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. We'll take 2 more questions. Is that okay? Is that good?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Great.
My question for Seth is why the dramatic change between what you regularly make and going to Cosmos, and if you're going to continue doing that, making more science programming?
You know, it came about. I was looking for something good to do at this point in my career. I figured I'd reached a point where there was an opportunity to do something productive with the muscle that I had developed over the years, and you know, I spoke to Neil deGrasse Tyson, who I had met through an organization called the Science and Entertainment Exchange, which was set up by Jerry and Janet Zucker. Jerry Zucker, of course, Zucker Brothers, Airplane, Naked Gun. And the goal of that organization is to put scientists in touch with people in entertainment, writers, directors, because the general feeling is from the public, I think, you know, when you watch a procedural or you watch a space show or you watch a medical show, that somebody's doing all that research, and it's not always the case, and a lot of times it isn't. It's like, it's late at night, we just want to get the script done. It's the kidney. Yeah, that's it. Moving on. And what this organization is, you know, aimed to do was I'm getting off on a tangent, but it's a cool thing, is to create easy access for filmmakers and makers of television to scientists to pick up the phone and basically have a hotline to say, hey, you know what? Somebody's getting their information from our show, so we might as well be responsible with our facts. So through this organization, I met Neil Tyson, and I went to lunch with him in New York and said, you know, what can I do? Like, what's out there that needs doing? And he mentioned Cosmos, and he mentioned, you know, that they were taking it to National Geographic, that they were taking it around to the cable networks. And I said, well, you know, just for the hell of it, you know, why don't you let me take you into Fox? And, you know, it's worth a shot. And as I said, this particular regime at Fox is one that I've had a great relationship with. They are very, very intelligent people. I figured if anyone's gonna get this, it's gonna be these guys. They're, you know, Kevin Riley came from NBC, you know, where, you know, 30 Rock, The Office, those were all his shows. Just a sharp guy who likes different stuff and things that kind of shake up the landscape. And they went for it. They thought it was a really cool idea. I haven't thought about doing multiple pieces of programming in this vein, but, you know, maybe I will think about it.
Okay, thank you.
Last question. This is it. This is brilliant. No pressure.
I'll make it good. Wally Hooser. First, Ann, it's good to see you again. Last time I saw you was the 25th anniversary when we established the Cosmos Award.
Very good to see you again, too.
I'm a practicing physician, and I think it's absolutely brilliant that you're putting this on Fox, and I'll tell you why. There's no point in speaking, as you mentioned, I practice in Texas. My patients are Muslim, Catholic, Jewish, Hindu, Sikh. You name it, I have it, okay? The people who watch Fox are Middle America. We have not done a good job of talking to them. We tend to patronize them. Religion is very important to them, but the way you speak to them is very important. Carl Sagan had the gift of disagreeing without being disagreeable. Mm-hmm. Many of us do not have that gift.
That's right. That's right.
Neil has that gift, and I applaud you for doing this because you're going to reach people who I deal with every day, who if you explain to them in a way that is not patronizing, they listen. What I have said to people who are very religiously committed, who have serious issues as it relates to science, I've said from someone that is much brighter than I am, that the purpose of religion is to discuss why. Science, we say how. And that allows them to accept it. So thank you very much for what you're doing. I think it's a wonderful idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much for taking the time. I mean, it's a Sunday afternoon. You've got a Curiosity rover to land. Thank you so much. A hand for Seth and Annie. Wow, fantastic.